Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Jimmy is Promo, and today we have with us Dal Gemmell. He is the head of product over at Helium. Dal, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on to the channel, man.
No problem, Jimmy. Really appreciate you guys having us on and supporting us and getting your message out. So thanks. We appreciate it.
No problem, man. I mean, I'm a huge, believer in Helium. I see where it could go, and I just had to get on the project just as soon as I heard about it, found out about it. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing. So the first question I have, there's actually 15 questions, and a
Jeez.
lot of this will be around validators and staking. I mean, I had an interview with Frank Mong who covered
hmm
so many different aspects. Everybody loved it. It was
hmm
received very well. So again, thank you for coming on the channel. The first question I have for you is going to
Okay.
be, first off, what's your role at Helium and why did you get involved with Helium?
Okay. Thanks for that, Jimmy. So as you said, I'm head of IoT product, but Helium's still a startup. So I wear many hats, like we all do. At the end of the day, we just work really hard to get things done. How did I get involved in Helium? So back at the end of 2017, I was looking for a new opportunity, and this guy named Frank Mong, who you've had on recently, he invited me over. And Frank and I have actually, kind of fun fact, we've worked together in two other companies, so there's a lot of trust there. Even though I wasn't really clear about what Helium was, but he told me about this big audacious mission that the company had, and I was hooked.
Most of it, again, will be with validators. It's
Sure.
something brand new. When Frank Mong came on, what was new then was 5G. Now we
Mm.
have validators. What was your involvement with the validators for the Helium team?
Sure. So I was asked to be the product lead for Validators. So I work with our very talented engineering team. And Validators is, as we'll get into, it encompasses many parts of Helium. So there's a blockchain part, there's the actual validator node software part, which technically is also called miner, and then the wallet as well. So kind of working cross-functionally across those teams, and then also with the marketing team to get the word out as well. That's kind of my role.
So, for anybody who does not know what validators mean, and I'm actually still new with the
Mm-hmm.
validator portion of this, so could you explain what a validator is for anybody who is brand new? Because Helium is a really good gateway to get into cryptocurrency.
Mm.
I found a lot of my friends, a lot of my family who weren't previously in crypto,
Right.
or Bitcoin or Ethereum or really anything. So
Mm-hmm.
this is their first time learning validators. If you could explain
Right.
that.
So helium's kind of like the gateway drug into crypto for folks.
Not really like the gateway drug, but it's something that introduces them into
Sure.
into it. I mean, it's with me, example, mining helium. It's my first time mining anything, and
Right.
then with that came my opportunity of mining Bitcoin as well. So I've got
Right.
actually an ASIC miner over to the right of me. So
Right.
it got me into it, and yeah. So validator, it's pretty important, and it's going to come up,
Sure.
and it's probably going to change a lot of things. So
Yeah.
what would it be? How
Yeah.
could you describe it to
Sure.
someone brand new? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting that you talk about kind of helium being this transition to learning more about crypto and what are the possibilities and opportunities out there. And that's really, tip of the hat to the team on the hotspot and the coverage side who have worked really, really hard to make that exposure and that experience very smooth, right?
Mhm.
If you look at a lot of crypto projects, it's quite daunting if you're not really technically savvy. And a lot of these folks who are working on these crypto projects, they are very techy, and they focus more on the protocol and all that, and not so much on the user experience. And Helium has worked really hard on the user experience and make it more accessible. So validators, well, validator nodes kind of the definition is like this new entity on the blockchain, on the Helium blockchain. And so these validators are going to perform the work of the consensus group, which includes verifying transactions that happen and then adding blocks to the blockchain so the blockchain can continue. So to double click on that, it's really a piece of software. The validator notes, it's a piece of software that users would host on their servers. This software is going to receive these encrypted transactions, and they're going to work together to make sure that these are valid. The ordering of these transactions, they're going to form a block and then just add that to the blockchain and just continue that work. And then they get rewarded for doing that work.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It was explained very well because, like talking about how it's the gateway, it's something easy. That's the thing I like about it. I love the fact that it's plug into power, connected to Wi-Fi. It's the same as any other IoT device that I have in the house, connected cameras, Alexas, Googles, things like that. And the application is fluid. So that was kind of a little bit of what I was talking about because it's super hard to get into with Bitcoin and Ethereum mining.
So just sorry, Jamie, just to be clear though, that, and we'll get into this, I'm sure later in the discussion, but hotspots, hosting hotspots, providing coverage, that's very much anyone can do it, right? Mm-hmm. And we want anyone can do it, right? Because that's how the people's network will really win and take over, is providing this ubiquitous coverage that's very affordable for people to actually use it. But now validators, it is a bit of a different beast. These are, and we'll talk about it probably later, but these validators need to be installed and hosted on very robust servers that have higher compute power, but then also like a very strong synchronous network connection, both upload and download. And so that is part of some of the requirements. And again, I'm sure we'll get into more details, but hotspot coverage and providing this network connectivity for these wireless devices, that is definitely, we want to get as many people involved as possible. Validators is a different audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think with the audience here, I think we're going to have a good mix of both. Some with entry and then some with a little bit more expertise to get into the validator space. But yeah, I'm super excited and stoked for both of them. So question number 3, how does the Helium blockchain currently run, and why are validators a logical and necessary next step for the evolution of the blockchain?
Yeah, so I don't think we'll have time to dive into all the details of the blockchain, but the Helium blockchain is similar to other blockchains in that it's immutable, it's a digital ledger. The team had to build this blockchain from scratch. So this is a new protocol blockchain. It's not forked off of Ethereum or Bitcoin or what have you. What's unique about, so that's kind of the characteristics that it shares with blockchains in general. This digital ledger is immutable. What's unique is this proof of coverage work algorithm. So unlike Bitcoin and Ethereum having this proof of work consensus algorithm that really requires a lot of compute and energy in order for it to work. And so there's a trade-off. It works really well, but then you get these mining pools, and then there's damage to the ecosystem because of power usage. And I mean, that's very controversial, but that is one of the downsides of that type of proof of work algorithm. Whereas proof of coverage, it is, it's using radio frequency to provide basically proof of that hotspots are providing the coverage that they say they are. And so this combination of challenges and beacons and witnessing, we're able to really verify that network coverage is provided by hotspots. The proof of work wouldn't have been able to work given the hardware and the computational limitations of the hotspots. So the team had to build specifically this proof of coverage and make it very, not power intensive. And so it becomes very eco-friendly. But But if folks really wanted to dive in and learn more about the math, I recommend going to the white paper. Now, the white paper is dated, and we've made a lot of improvements along the way, especially from community members, which have been great. But the kind of the core architecture and foundation of what proof of coverage is in that white paper. And if people really want to get into the details, I urge them to go and take a look at that.
Okay, yeah. And if you have a link for that, send it on over as well, or anybody on the team. And this way I'll put all the links needed will be in the description below. So I'll definitely put in the Helium Discord and then your the white papers link as well.
Yep, definitely.
Thank you. So question 4, will the validators increase the amount of consensus group members? And how about increasing the stability of the blockchain? And then portion of that, could validators in theory help lower block times from 60 seconds?
Okay, so like a big 3-part question there, Jimmy.
Thank you. Yeah, so basically, will validators increase the amount of consensus group members? We can do that one first.
Yes, definitely. So there's currently, I'm sure you've followed the growth of the network, and I think about 41,000 hotspots or something crazy, right?
Yeah.
It was in 30 something, a week ago. So the issue though is the number of consensus group members is fixed. It's 16. Mm-hmm. And that's based on just hardware limitations. So we've seen that as the network scales, that's not going to work to make sure that we have consistent block production. And so we are increasing the number of consensus group members to around 3 times that number, so 49. And so that will enable us to really scale up the network, allow block production times to be a lot more consistent, because these machines that validators are hosted on, they have more compute power, they have very strong, as we said, synchronous network connections, so both up and down. And it's not necessarily going to lower block times, but it's going to keep them very consistent.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. If there is a not only just a set number, but the set persons who is in charge to making sure it's a strong connection, it'll always keep it smooth.
That's right.
Versus some hotspot that could be on Wi-Fi that's a little sketch here and there. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because as we said, the number currently is fixed, but the network continues to grow. Yeah. And people are using, home internet connections, which is not great as the network is continuing to grow. And especially if, hey, my kid's Zoom is, with my teacher, and so my wife unplugged my hotspot while it's going on, and, it was right in the middle of, doing consensus group work. Those things happen, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Let's see. How about the increase? Okay, so yeah, it'll increase stability of the blockchain. And then also not really lower the block times, but make it consistent. So actually, yeah, you did a good job answering all 3
nice. Right
there. And so, and again, there's probably a few of these that you might or might not be able to answer as well. And I think this could be one, maybe. What's the APR of validators, and does this compare to token earnings from mining helium with a hotspot?
Yeah, this is a great question, one that we often get. Basically, it's like, what's the ROI for hosting a validator? The truth is that there's so many different variables that need to be taken into account. Very similar to if you host a hotspot. And if you host a hotspot, well, then what's the ROI? Well, how many hotspots are on the network, and what's the number of hotspots that are around you, and do you have a really good antenna, and are you on relay, and et cetera, right? So validators, it's a similar type of thing. There's a number of variables that need to be considered in terms of what the rewards would get from doing that consensus group work. Now, the community has actually come out with a number of calculators based on if there's 100 validators or 200 or 500, and what is the amount pre-halving or post-halving. So I would refer folks to go to our Discord channel, our Validator Discord channel, and in the pinned messages, there's some links to some calculators that the community has developed to help address those questions.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And I mean, there's so many, experts in that group, so many people that knows exactly what's going on. And it's just a chat, specific to these things. So I know that I get a lot of questions here on the channel. So anybody who does have questions, first head to Discord. Highly suggest that, because there's going to be more that you can learn there than actually just in my comment section.
Yeah.
But again, still write questions, comments, anything you want. But highly suggest the Discord, because there's a lot of good golden nuggets inside of there, and a lot of people that can help you.
Yeah, I'm the Helium team learns from our community all the time, and it's great. I mean, I think recently we posted an update. There's now over 60,000 members on our Discord community, which is crazy. Wow. But yeah, it's awesome.
That's a good growth. Yeah. I mean, when I first, actually, in terms of the number of hotspots online, my first one that I got, I was like number 18,200 something, I believe. So right. It's well over doubled since when I first started in January.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so here's a big question, and it's one that it's in my head, and I really want to know if maybe if you can help. Validators require 10,000 Helium staked per node for a total of 6% rewards, because I think that's maybe the rewards of consensus groups.
Yep.
So currently allotted, so it's to the consensus groups. What's the reason behind both the 10,000 HNTs minimum and then the 6% allotted rewards? Because 10,000 heliums is quite a bit.
Yeah, it's let me start with the 6% one, because I think that's easier to answer, and then I'll get to the 10,000. So the 6% it's the same amount that the current consensus group earns, the Hotspot consensus group. And so the team felt that let's keep it consistent. It's the same work that's being produced, so the reward should be the same, and that doesn't take away additional rewards from Hotspots. And it's just very smooth. It's a smooth transition. There's a certain amount of work that gets done. There's a certain amount of value that gets attached to that work, regardless of whether it's Hotspots or Validators. That should stay consistent. So that's the 6%. The 10,000. Yeah. So the Validators started with something we call a Helium improvement proposal. And so that's a proposal that either Helium team proposes or members of the community or whoever. Actually, anyone can make these proposals. So HIP 25 was originally started back in January. And at the time, the team did a survey and said, okay, let's take a look and see what's out there in the market. What are other staking type of protocols? What is their amount? What do we want to accomplish by providing these validators? And it's really a balance. We're trying to achieve a balance, right? There's never going to be a perfect number, but we're trying to achieve a balance where the number is big enough that it helps ensure that only folks who are really serious about investing in validator nodes and the infrastructure needed to host them, but it's still accessible to a decent sized group that we would be able to achieve beyond our threshold. So the threshold that we need is 100 validator nodes. We feel we'll get that pretty easily based on the feedback and the enthusiasm from the community. But yeah, it's not a perfect number. Back when we initially proposed it, there's that number hasn't changed. Obviously, the price or the value has, right? And that's just the nature of crypto. But that's really why we chose and came up with that number.
And then, so you actually I believe you just answered this question. Is there a maximum amount of validators that can be running? So I believe you said 100 validators.
No, so that's the threshold. There is no maximum.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So we would need at least 100 before we would say, okay, we're going to flip the switch. We're going to activate validators, and now they're going to be doing consensus group. So once we have that 100 threshold, then we can move to the next phase and flip the switch. But in terms of the maximum number of validators that can be staked, no, there's no maximum. And there's there's no overstaking as well. So there's no reason why anybody would stake beyond 10,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that was the very next portion right here. Was wondering if you could overstake, and that makes a lot of sense. So that also kind of makes it sound like validators are still for the future, which I believe is another question I have. So I'll hold that for a minute.
Sure.
Now, the next question, for those who have hotspots set up, will this affect the hotspots in any way in terms of rewards or reliability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as we mentioned, the 6% rewards that the consensus group, the hotspot consensus group is earning, get shifted over to validators. So yes, that 6% is going, but as the network has grown and the fact that the consensus group was fixed at 16, it was becoming more like a lottery, and with increasingly decreasing odds that your hotspot would actually get chosen, to be honest, right? So yes, that 6%, the majority of hotspot rewards are still provided to your hotspots and hotspot owners for coverage and transferring data. And block production is more reliable, so the rewards will be also more consistent.
Got it. And I'm really excited for validators to come on, because I want that consistency. Sometimes you may go like 8 hours without like a challenge or without a reward. So I'm definitely excited for validators come on.
Sure.
So next question, and again, I don't know if this one you might be able to answer, maybe not. What are the steps to get set up with a validator node, and what are the computing requirements and estimated cost of running that node?
Yeah, so the first one I'll be able to answer. The second part of the second one, I won't.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we have very good step-by-step documentation for setting up a validator node. And I'll include that. I'll share that link with you, Jimmy. But at a high level, if a user is starting from scratch, what they would do is they download the validator software. They set it up in a suitable environment, and we'll talk about what that is. And there's both a Docker container, which makes it very straightforward because all the dependencies and all that stuff is included. But if you're very techy, then you could choose to build a validator from source if you're into it. Now that is one path that a user could go through, and the other way is because maybe not everyone has 10,000 HNT, or they don't have the technical skills or the desire to want to set up and monitor the validator nodes, right? Mm-hmm. And so a number of staking providers have emerged, both new ones from the community and existing ones who are supporting other protocols. So that's an option for folks as well. Now, in terms of technical requirements, we really recommend that if somebody is doing it themselves and they have the technical know-how, that they would use some sort of cloud provider, AWS, Google, Azure, DigitalOcean. It doesn't matter, just as long as it's something that's very stable, has very strong, as we said, symmetrical network connection. Regardless of if you're running from Docker or you're running from source, you need Linux. So a Linux system based on running a Docker, Ubuntu 20.04 LTS for source. Mm-hmm. And then, in our documentation, we have some specs in terms of what the CPU we recommend, memory, storage. But if folks are familiar with, say, AWS, something equivalent would be like a T2 large or extra large EC2 instance, somewhere around there.
Okay. Um,
And then the cost. Yeah,
yeah.
this is something that folks are going to have to go and research and see um, what cloud provider makes the most sense for their needs. Uh, yeah, and then just do the research. But yeah, we really discourage folks from setting this up at a server at home and using their home internet connection.
Hmm.
Um, what's going to happen is likely they are not going to earn as many rewards just because of their network connection is not as strong. And so that would be a consideration for them if they wanted to do that.
So number 10, I think this is kind of where we kind of covered most of this.
Sure.
So outside of mining helium, validators are essentially the only other way for users to earn HNT rewards. So if those who don't want the hotspot, this is the only other way to earn helium is validated, like validation work.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're providing coverage,
Yep.
and so coverage obviously with hotspots, and then validation through validators. So it's really about this work building the network and making sure that it's a very robust network.
So that's a good option for anybody who, is not maybe fully into, I guess, the hotspot, but they would look to earn reward one other way, which would be validators. And 6% is pretty good. Anytime I've ever been part of the consensus group, it was a pretty
Mm-hmm.
good, result with that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why we're seeing a lot of demand and interest
Yes.
in validators. And
Yeah.
I just want to quick shout out to all the testers that helped out with the testnet. We had incredible folks just participating, giving us feedback, highlighting issues, even writing documentation. So really appreciate this community and specifically the folks who helped out with the testnet to make the network and validators really robust.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for everybody that was doing that. So this might be one I don't know if you can do, but I believe all the rest you can answer. So what are the primary services available for users to have their staking managed for them or stake smaller amounts of helium, since many may not have 10,000? So, I mean, we're talking about everything up until now, some of the requirements, some of the things that they can look forward to, cloud management, why validators are important. And then you got people like me who don't have 10,000. And I also know that, you might not be able to answer it, but do you know of any of the primary services available for users if they don't have 10,000 in terms of, I guess you could say, staking pools?
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked this question because it brings up a very important point in terms of how can people participate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we said there's really two paths. One path is I have the 10,000 HNT, I have the technical chops, and I'm going to go and spin up a AWS or DigitalOcean, and I'm going to just do it myself, right? Kind of the DIY path. The other path is, well, I may or may not have the 10,000 HNT, and I don't want to be bothered with having to set up a server, monitor it, make sure everything's working well, keep it updated, etc. Right?
Yep.
For that group of folks, staking providers are available, and so these are independent companies or entities who feel that they can offer this service, and they are able to help out those folks who wouldn't be able to do it themselves or choose not to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. And so different staking providers have offer different type of services. And some of those include, well, I don't have enough HNT. Okay, well then let's pool it together and then you'll get a percentage of those rewards. We need to keep a very objective view in terms of these staking providers because they're not helium company, like they're not related to us.
Mm-hmm.
They're providing a service to our community. And but having said that, we do list a number of providers, but kind of that disclaimer listing does not provide any type of recommendation or endorsement. It's just a convenience to the community that these providers are available for your convenience. But caveat emptor, you need to go and do your own research and see which ones fit your needs.
Okay. No, that sounds good. I'll have to definitely take a look at that path.
Yeah.
And then the Helium roadmap says that the validators are coming Q2 in 2021. So is that still on track? So for second half of 2021, a couple months away, maybe?
Well, yeah, the 10,000 HNT question, right? When is validators go live?
Yep.
Yeah, we get this one a lot. So we are still planning to release Q2, so which would be before the end of June. That's when Q2 ends. And the way that we're going to go about doing it is we're going to do this in phases. So the first phase, we're going to make staking available. So everyone will make an announcement. Everyone who wants to, including staking providers, will go and they will download the validator nodes, set up their wallets, and stake their validators, right?
Mm-hmm.
After that, we'll announce a countdown when we actually activate validators on mainnet. And the time between when activation happens and staking is available, we haven't finalized that, but we'll make a countdown. And the idea is to really give everyone this kind of level playing field. So if you want to stake, you've got enough time to set up your environment, read the docs, get brushed up on it if you've read it, but you haven't referred to it for a while. Mm-hmm. And so that when we do activate, everybody kind of starts at equal starting point. Now, after we activate, folks can continue to stake, right? This is just the beginning. But once validators are available and active on mainnet, then anyone can continue to stake validators after that.
So with all the validators, that brings in a lot of things that could change.
Mm-hmm.
So with this next question, light hotspots are highly anticipated in the ecosystem. So there wouldn't be any more syncing. So I first saw on the CalChip website that they have one from CareLink, and I noticed that it did not, it would not go with the consensus group, which made me think that validators were coming up at some point. Mm-hmm. So those lighter validators, no more syncing with the hotspots, which I'm excited for. So you wouldn't have to wait 24, 48 hours. When is the expected release of light hotspots after validators mainnet has launched?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So validators, initially they're going to do consensus group work, but they will set the foundation for being able to provide light hotspots, which my peer is actually driving. So light hotspots is another team that totally focused on making those reality. And this is going to be very exciting, because what light hotspots will do is it will continue to drive down the cost of hotspots, because you won't need that extra compute needed for additional blockchain work. So we will see more providers providing hotspots and network. So network coverage is going to continue to grow even quicker once validators are in place, and we continue to do work on validators. Now, to answer your question about the timing, there's actually a number of phases for light hotspots, including adding them initially to the blockchain, and then getting rewards for forwarding packets from devices that are using the network, and then also for what we described as proof of coverage, so validating that network coverage from nearby hotspots. So there's a number of milestones. I think what you'll start to see is this summer and beyond, you'll start to see the team hitting these milestones. So get validators in place, in parallel working on light hotspots. Validators are going to provide the foundation that will enable these light hotspots. And then, like I said, summer and beyond, you'll start to see the team hitting these different milestones.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, because I'm pretty excited for some of those, and I know a lot of people always ask questions about light hotspots or if they can DIY their own with some Raspberry Pis, things like that. So this is basically like the last one that I have. I added two more, but this is pretty much the last one here, and I want it to be at this point instead of the very very end. Where are the best places to learn more to get involved, and more specifically, for validation work for validators? Yep.
Yeah, there's a few resources that I point folks to. One is, as we mentioned, the Discord community. Mm-hmm. So there are two channels dedicated to validators. One is, as you can imagine, called Validators. Mm-hmm. And the other is an announcement-only channel called Validator Announcements. So those would be very good to start monitoring and looking at pinned messages. So typically, there's some pinned messages and people will ask the same things over and over, and that's a good place to get some information. The docs.helium.com provides some technical information. It also provides kind of those step-by-step guides that I mentioned as well, including, what are the technical requirements specifically to host a validator. So docs.helium.com is another good technical resource. And then, it's interesting. It's kind of like, if you think of a pyramid, at the bottom is Discord. It's kind of open to everybody. Then you go up to docs.helium, which is a little bit more technical. And then you go at the top is our GitHub repo. So all Validators is open source. And if you're very techy or technically inclined, you can go to the GitHub repo. I'll share the link with you, Jamie, so you can share with your audience. But folks can go around, poke at the code and take a look. And that GitHub repo is a great place to, if you have suggestions or improvements that you want to make, whether it's with the actual validator software or with the API or the wallet, some wallet functionality, all those GitHub repos exist and are open and public.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so I'll post all those below. And then, so one thing that I want to ask is, how long, if anybody was to become a validator, how long would you have to have the HNT staked?
Yeah, so this is what we call a cool down period, or it's also called an unbonding period. So the initial plan was to have it staked as for approximately 250,000 blocks, which would equal a little less than 5 months.
Okay.
So what that means is I've staked my validator node. Validators have been activated on mainnet, and now I'm earning rewards. So the rewards that you earn are immediately available. So immediately available, immediately liquid. So as soon as like an epoch or blockchain epoch or period ends, which is 30 blocks, the rewards are allocated and they are automatically transferred to your validator wallet. Now, you're doing this for 6 months, you're doing this for a year, everything is great. And then you choose, for whatever reason, you say, you know what, I want to unstake. So I want to pull out my initial 10,000 HNT. Once you start that, the clock kind of kicks in. And initially it was 250,000 blocks. We are changing that to 125,000.
Okay.
So a little less than 3 months. And so at that time, you enter your validator node enters this cooldown period. So you can't, your validator doesn't earn rewards, and you can't access that initial 10,000 HNT.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that all makes sense. Okay,
Yeah,
and
so sorry. There's let's say, for example, you need to get your 10,000 HNT quicker. Like you're like, I can't wait 3 months or 125,000 blocks. My kid's tuition is due, or whatever. Or I need to pay for a really great wedding present. There is an option, so you can transfer your stake to another validator node. So you would have to work out some deal with someone else, and you'd have to trust each other. But that option is available to transfer a stake to another validator node, so you don't have to go through that cooldown period. But again, this is something that you would need to work out with that other party and be very, make sure that you guys trust each other and all this stuff. But that is an option.
And then, since we got a lot of the staking, the validating out of the way, if I may, do you know of any other miner manufacturers coming on board in the near future? Just because, with a few of the miners kind of halting or slowing down, some of them taking so many orders, and everybody understands, the reason for the wait and the manufacturing, the batches, the shipping. I guess some are just looking for other outlets from helium.com of approved authorized manufacturers of more of these. So I guess, is there more coming?
So I've definitely heard about some of the frustrations with some of the existing hotspot manufacturers. And this is, I think there's expectation setting, and then global pandemic and supply chain issues and chip shortage. And these are all kind of creating this perfect storm. But so from Helium's perspective, and, we work with the DY, the foundation that supports Helium. And they're the ones who will approve whether a manufacturer can start, building and shipping Helium approved, or Helium compatible, I should say, hotspots. And so they will pull in folks from the team from Helium to go and make sure that things are, help them out in terms of assessing. But, more and more of that is being taken over by that foundation. And I believe they're creating a community, a technical community to take on that. So I'm not directly involved in terms of, which vendors have submitted applications to become a HIT 19 approved vendor. That's all the foundation. I have heard, like you, of Curlink as well. But I do know that, the team, once there are new vendors that have been applied, like the DY, they're very transparent about who's in that pipeline. And as I said, I think they're doing a lot of work to get a community, like a technical community involved, to even streamline that better.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, that is all of the questions that I have here. So thank you so much for giving your time, answering all these questions. I'm excited for Validators. If I could fully stake a node, I would. I might look for a pool if I could. But I'm just really excited for the stability, the smoothness of it. And that's really what I'm most excited for. And no syncing, things like that. But again, thank you so much for being on the channel. Is there anything that you wanted to close out with? Anything on the tip of your head that you want to get out there?
I did a shout out to the testnet community. I did that earlier, so I wouldn't forget. But definitely a shout out to those folks and just the Helium community in general. They've been extremely supportive, helpful with others. there's always going to be bad eggs, but on the whole, the community has been fantastic. And yeah, validators, it's really exciting. We're seeing this network grow exponentially, and people throw that word around a lot, but it really is. And Validators is going to just really help this network continue to scale and continue its explosive growth. And so it's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the channel, and hopefully you guys appreciated this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. If you have questions, anything that you want to ask, write it in the comment section below. Other than that, I will have other links you can go to, especially the Helium Discord if you have other questions. A lot of product experts there to help with anything that you have. There's a general chat you can go to. There's a bunch of other chats, especially if you want to learn more about validators. But again, thank you for being on the channel. Thanks for watching the video today. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.